VFX Society takes everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, gather around the virtual water coolers. We talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of television, all sorts of good stuff. And speaking about all sorts of good stuff, he is our very own existential Mr. Rogers. He is the wonderful Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, it's a great day today, isn't it? I mean, the Oscars are over. It leaves our entire movie watching, at least for a lot of the year, completely open, and we can just be excited about the movies we love.
Indeed, we can. And listen, we do have a lot of stuff to talk about here today about the movies that we love. So hopefully you'll hang in here with us. Of course, we do this show kind of in two parts. The first part is just all the main topics of the day. Then later on in hour two of the show, we get into your live questions. So we're going to start things off here with a couple of off the tops. And the first thing we're going to start about off the top is this. At the Academy Awards the other night, one of what I thought was one of the funnier bits of the evening. And remember, this is coming from a guy who used to work in the VFX industry. I am a massive VFX fanboy. I just geek out over the names of John Knoll, and it's just people who do visual effects and make movie magic. I just love them. I geek out over them. But as one of those people, I thought the Cats gag that they did at the Oscars was fun. Some people thought it was in poor taste, and that's fair enough. Robert, you're one of them. You thought it was kind of maybe in poor taste, maybe not the best thing to do. I thought it was really fun and funny, and I like the fact when filmmakers and the Oscars and the movie industry itself doesn't take itself too seriously. That being said, the Visual Effects Society decided to put out a response. Why? I have no idea. But the Visual Effects Society decided to put out a response that was so tone deaf and so hypocritical, it almost defies belief. In response to the Cats joke, it was a joke. Anyway, this is what they wrote in response to the Cats joke, Robert. They wrote the following. Last night, in presenting the Academy Award for Outstanding Visual Effects, the producers chose to make visual effects the punchline and suggested that bad visual effects were to blame for the poor performance of the Cats movie. No, they didn't, by the way. No, they didn't. That was never implied. Anyway, the best visual effects in the world will not compensate for a story badly told. The Visual Effects Society is focused on recognizing, advancing, and honoring visual effects as an art form and ensuring that the men and women working in visual effects are properly valued. On a night that is all about honoring the work of talented artists, it is immensely disappointing that the Academy made visual effects the butt of a joke. Oh, it's cool if we make everybody else the butt of it's cool to make everything else is cool to be butt of the joke. Not us, though. How dare you, sir? How dare you? Anyway, make the visual effects the butt of a joke. It demeaned the global community of expert VFX practitioners, no it didn't, doing outstanding, challenging, and visually stunning work to achieve the filmmaker's vision. Our artists, technicians, and innovators deserve respect, of course they do, for their remarkable contributions to filmed entertainment and should not be presented as the all-too-convenient scapegoat in service for a laugh. Rob, I just want to read the first 3.5 lines again here, okay? Because here we have the Visual Effects Society saying, how dare you make fun? Do you know how hard it is to be? We are artists. We are artists. And they are. And they're magicians and they're wizards. And it's amazing what they do. But we are artists. You shouldn't throw the artists under the bus. I want to read the first 3.5 lines again. Last night, in presenting the Academy Awards for Outstanding Visual Effects, the producers chose to make visual effects the punchline and suggested that bad visual effects, which they never did, suggested that bad visual effects were to blame for the poor performance of the movie Cats. The best visual effects in the world will not compensate for a story badly told. I want to point out a couple of things here. I'm not seeing the VFX Society writing an article saying, how dare you guys make fun of Martin Scorsese at the beginning of the Oscars. You had Chris Rock get out there and you made fun of The Irishman. Having Chris Rock goes, oh, hey, Marty Scorsese, I love the first season of The Irishman. Do you know how many people worked on that to put blood, sweat, and tears into every single minute that went into making that? Making that joke is disrespectful to people who tell stories, telling that joke, and blah, blah, blah. I didn't see the Visual Effects Society writing that letter. Oh, it's because it's cool, Rob. It's cool. We understand jokes. We understand when it's in good fun. We understand when it's meant to just poke fun at ourselves a little bit, not take it too seriously. Oh, making fun of Robert or Martin Scorsese in his movie? Oh, that's funny. That's cool. You made us a part of the joke? How dare you? But I want to point out something, Rob, here that is immensely hypocritical. Immensely hypocritical in this thing. Their whole letter is about saying, how dare you make fun of visual effects artists? How dare you make fun of the artists? These people work hard, and of course they do. These people work hard and are incredibly skilled, incredibly talented. They pour their blood, sweat, and tears in this project. How dare you? And then in the very next breath, they threw the screenwriter and the director under the bus. In the very next breath, after talking about, you shouldn't make the butt of the jokes people who work so hard to make these movies and all this kind of stuff. You shouldn't make them the butt of the jokes. You shouldn't do. And what did they do next? The best visual effects in the world will not compensate for a story badly told. They immediately throw the director under the bus. They immediately throw the writers under the bus. They immediately throw the producers under the bus. They threw everybody under the bus. So it's cool for them to do it and not anybody else. It's cool to make fun of everybody else at the Oscars, not cool to make fun of us. It is absolutely not cool to say anything remotely disparaging about the work that an artist does in their art. Oh, by the way, producers, writers, directors of this film did a shit job. They did a shit job. The hypocrisy of this statement. Now look, Rob, you and I had a bit of a debate yesterday about whether telling those types of jokes during the presentation of the Oscars is entertaining and good fun, or maybe inappropriate to do in that moment. And that's a debate that we can have. That's an easy debate that can be had. But as somebody who counts himself as a Googling, drooling fanboy of visual effects artists and the magic that they do, I mean, listen, guys, if you love the MCU, you better get on your hands and knees and thank every visual effects artist that comes in the room, because just that couldn't exist today. The Star Wars movies as they exist today could not exist today. The DC movies could not exist today the way they exist today. You know, Inception couldn't exist the way it exists today if it wasn't for the work of these magicians, these visual effects artists. But Rob, I thought this response was at best tone deaf, at worst bleedingly hypocritical. And I didn't like the response. Now, granted, that's coming from a guy who I thought the joke was done in good fun and this Hollywood making fun of itself. But so that's my perspective. As somebody who had the other perspective, Rob, that, hey, you know what, who you felt that while presenting an award, that's not the time and place to do it. How did you look at the Visual Effects Society's letter?
Well, I like you, I thought that letter was pretty damn tone deaf. Look, here, let me read something. One of the special effects artists who worked on Cats, Yves McCrae, tweeted this. He said, "Hey guys, I haven't watched all of the Oscars, but I assume these two were really classy and thanked me for working 80-hour weeks right up until I was laid off and the studio was closed, right?" And I think, look, you know, Cats is going to go down in history as some kind of special something. And the thing that I objected to, first of all, that letter is it's incredibly tone deaf, because all people that work on movies, I've been on many movie sets in my life, and I've never seen anyone slack off. I've always been saying on my show that one of the most, I guess, inspiring, if you're not bored to tears because you don't know what's going on, but if you're on a movie set, one of the most inspiring things that I can imagine is watching a crew of people, especially on large tentpole properties, busting their asses and making their days and creating the magic over 12 hours. So many people put so much time and sweat equity into movies that you will never know. So I think it's unfair that the visual effects artists you're going to go after a screenwriter and a director. I mean, how do you think a movie got greenlit? Nobody ever greenlights a movie they think is going to fail. Cats is one of the most beloved Broadway shows of all time. I mean, you had a director, an Academy Award-winning director. All the elements were in place. So to even say that, look, sometimes things go horribly awry, John, as they say, you know, even the best battle plans never survive contact with the enemy. And that's true of making movies. And I think it was bad to do that. And, you know, the thing that I objected to, it's one thing to tell jokes about movies, But, you know, when you see Rebel Wilson and James Corden in their cat suits coming out on stage at the Academy Awards, the night of glitz and glamour, I understand. I understand. But it's like it just seemed it wasn't so much they're just making fun of cats. I think the entire because not all the visual effects nominated, you know, they had nothing to do with cats. And I understand the joke that they were trying to make, but I think for the actual awards that are given out, you're sending up the entire visual effects industry. And I didn't think that was what rubbed me the wrong way. And I think that response should have been a little classier. As I've always said on my own show, you can't fight oppression by trading one person's oppression for another. And it's like that's what they did. They want to do, like, rather than write something classy and object to what happened, they have to go after somebody else then. So you're going to throw someone else under the bus in defense of your own people? That doesn't work. That's never a good tactic.
And listen, I personally, I thought the joke was made as a way to highlight good visual effects. But that being said, take it with the grain of salt, too, that the visual effects industry right now is a little tender.
It's a mess.
For very good reason. They're a little tender and maybe a little trigger happy because, like, all you have to do is go back a few years ago. And if you don't know much about this situation, go back and read up on the situation that happened with that Ang Lee movie with the damn tiger. What was the name of the picture?
It was Rhythm and Hughes was the effects company.
Was the effects company that, and if go back and read like just how difficult the industry is right now for visual effects. Like that one tweet you sent out, Rob, or that you just read. Is kind of, it encapsulates in one little microcosm kind of what's going on in the visual effects industry as a whole. Yes. People are working themselves near to death, and then companies make an award-winning film and then immediately have to shut their doors and go out of business because it killed them. Listen, the environment right now for visual effects artists, people need to make themselves a little bit more educated on just how rough it is, and I get that. That being said, I don't think a response like this does your profession any favors. I don't think a response like this does anything to correct that situation or garner any more understanding about it. So I don't know. I was disappointed to see the response. I thought they should have laughed it off, left it rolled off their back and moved on. But I mean, they did what they did, understanding, of course, that hey, the visual effects industry is a little bruised right now. I mean, because there is some real inequity going on. When it comes to that industry at the moment, and something's got to be done, and it's got to be fixed. But at any rate, guys, question is, what did you feel about that? Like, how are you feeling about that writing? Maybe you agree with me, maybe disagree with me. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. One more thing to do off the top here, and that is this. You know, a couple of years ago, it was announced that Ryan Reynolds, along with, I believe it's Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, who are the writers of Deadpool, along with Ryan Reynolds, we're going to do a remake of Clue. They're going to do their own version of Clue. And amongst a lot of people going, what? Was also a lot of joy. People were really, really excited about it. Well, Jason Bateman was aboard to direct it, but apparently now, unfortunately, scheduling conflicts. I mean, I just don't think they were able to get this thing up and running in time to fit in Jason Bateman's availability window. He's gone back to Ozark, but they have brought in James Bobin. Now, James Bobin directed that great Muppets movie, the not-so-great Muppets follow-up movie, the not-so-great Alice in Wonderland sequel, but he also directed a lot of episodes of Flight of the Condors, and he directed a hell of a lot of the episodes of Ali G. I mean, he just knows how to direct comedy. So apparently now they have brought on James Bobin to direct this Clue film. From what I understand, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick's script, the guys who wrote Deadpool, it's still their script from what I understand. Ryan Reynolds, from what I understand, is still attached. So Rob, let me ask you this. Starting with the basic concept of just them doing another Clue movie. How do you feel about James Bobin coming on board and knowing that, you know, Reese and Wernick and that Reynolds are still attached? Is this something that you're looking forward to, or does this seem kind of questionable? How are you feeling about it?
Well, here's the thing. I think the talent they've got, Reese and Wernick, I've really enjoyed their writing, and Bobin is a fine comedy director. Here's what I worry about. I'm worried about Ryan Reynolds' career. I'll tell you why. I'm worried that his shtick, which is now I mean, Six Underground, I felt I was watching, Deadpool before he became Deadpool. Wade Wilson. I think that I want to see. I have seen Ryan Reynolds stretch. I've seen him do work that is actually. I think he's a very fine actor, but I'm getting tired of the Ryan Reynolds comedy shtick. It's the Van Wilder shtick. It's just moved out of college, and I hope that if they do Clue, I would love to see him take on the role that is unexpected. Like I don't know, maybe the same way that Daniel Craig was the inspector in Knives Out. I hope that Ryan Reynolds, but he probably won't. But I loved Clue is not a very good movie. None of the endings make it a very good movie. It's fine. A lot of people hold it in high regard, but I love the idea of Clue because I loved playing the game as a kid. Who doesn't love Clue? So I actually have high hopes for this project. I think that it could you got to give it up for Ryan Reynolds for playing in Pikachu, Detective Pikachu. I mean, he's certainly making some off the wall choices, which I totally admire. I want it to be good, man. I want it to be good.
Here's the interesting thing. I got to say, it's a lot like the current kind of, as you put it, shtick that Ryan Reynolds is using at the moment. It reminds me a lot of the Kevin Hart thing. Kevin Hart undeniably has his Kevin Hart shtick.
Right.
And eventually that will get thin and he'll have to evolve. But for me, I'm still entertained by Kevin Hart's shtick. I when Kevin Hart is full Kevin Hart, I still dig it and I still like it. So yeah, will it eventually wear off? Yeah, it will. And I kind of feel the same way about the Ryan Reynolds thing right now because we just saw him in Hobbs and Shaw. And I got to tell you, his scenes in Hobbs and Shaw were some of my favorite scenes in that movie, Well,
that was peak Ryan Reynolds shtick.
Yes, it was.
That was peak. I thought it worked in that particular role. In Six Underground, it grew thin for me.
I think that might be. I'd suggest, and let me throw this out. I'd suggest that might be because the movie itself wasn't very strong.
I agree.
And I wonder, you might be right. I mean, a part of the movie not being very strong is maybe it's the Ryan Reynolds shtick getting thin, or maybe it just felt more thin because, I mean, I don't know. It could be a chicken or an egg thing. I'm not really sure about that. But I got to say, I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do here. So listen, guys, question is to you. You've had a chance to simmer. Maybe you forgot about this Clue movie is coming, but it's still coming. How do you feel about James Bobin coming on board? I got to admit, I'm a little bit disappointed, only because I was really looking forward to seeing what Jason Bateman would do, but I really do like James Bobin, despite the fact that a couple of his movies are a little on the weaker side. That's fine. How do you guys feel about it? Jump into the comment section below and leave us your thoughts. All right, guys. With all that down and out of the way, we're going to move on to our main topics of the day. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's absolutely free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question one of the featured topics here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Tommy's Doyle, who writes, John,
that's funny.
Did you hear that DC's response to the disappointing Weekend is to rename the movie from Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn to Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey? What do you think of this move, and will this change your opinion of the film? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And listen, when they first announced the title of this movie, I think a lot of us went, what? I mean, is that a joke? Because it's kind of funny if it's a joke. But Birds of Prey, and we all knew this wasn't going to be a Birds of Prey movie, and certainly this movie is not a Birds of Prey movie. That much is clear. This movie is a Harley Quinn movie, and with the disappointing, I don't think completely tragic opening of the Harley Quinn movie, not completely tragic, but definitely disappointing opening, it seems like they're making moves to try to change the image of the film. This comes to us from IGN. Warner Brothers has changed the title of their latest DC movie, Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, which is now called Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. The title change is already reflected on movie ticketing sites across the web. While Warner didn't release a statement about why they made the change, it's presumably a part of a strategy to help the film perform better at the box office after it had the lowest opening weekend of any DCEU movie to date. And I believe the second lowest opening of any DC film, only coming out ahead of Jonah Hex. So they've decided to change the name. Rob, I mean, look, changing a title is not going to make a movie any better. So the person asking the question is like, does this change your opinion of the film? No. The title of a movie does not change my opinion of a movie. It doesn't make a movie better. It doesn't make a movie worse. What a title can do is get people's attention. A title can get people's attention. Doesn't make the movie any better or worse. And Rob, look, we've known that the only reason this movie was getting made, we've known this from the day that they announced it, was because Harley Quinn, the character, played well in Suicide Squad. And they wanted to capitalize on that and try to roll it into something else. Harley Quinn is the only recognizable name in this movie. And this movie has very, very, very little to do with the Birds of Prey. That this is not a Birds of Prey movie by any stretch of the imagination. It is a Harley Quinn movie. Period. End of sentence. With special guests, Birds of Prey, at some point. Like I said, Mary Elizabeth Winstead doesn't even really become an actual character in the movie till well into the third act. Is this a good move? Yeah. This is what the name of the movie probably should have been from day one. Now, am I saying that if this had been the name of the movie from day one, that Birds of Prey would have made $65 million opening weekend instead of 33? No, but it might have made a little bit more. Might have made 38, might have made 37 if you just clearly communicated to the audience, number one, what the movie was about, which, by the way, the trailers of this film had nothing, just did not even reveal slightly what the actual plot of the movie was, and they should have. But I think it might have done a bit of good. It might have done a bit of good. But Rob, at this point, it's too little too late. The marketing campaign is done. People have already decided whether they were or were not going to go see this movie. So good move, sure, but I think too little too late. Rob, what do you think about this whole situation?
I think it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I mean, why don't you change the movie to Edge of Tomorrow?
I knew that would come up.
I mean, Warner Brothers, it's like, come on, you guys. I understood that it probably seemed funny. Birds of Prey, the fabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn, or whatever it's called. The movie is a Harley Quinn movie. If this was a men on a mission or a women on a mission movie and you're building a team from the beginning and Harley Quinn was there like Suicide Squad, I'd be like, okay. But this is clearly a Harley Quinn film. It's not like what is the new Harley Quinn animated series called, John?
Harley Quinn.
Yes, that's my point exactly. I mean, like, who are you selling? This movie is a star sell. It's Margot Robbie, who everyone loves, Academy Award nominated actress. It's like, why aren't you putting her front and center? Why do we have to wonder about the fabulous emancipation? I get it. You're trying to be cool and all that.
Rob, as I was corrected earlier, it's the fantabulous emancipation. Maybe that's the problem.
The fantabulous emancipation of, I mean, it's not like it's Dr. Strangelove or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. It's not Stanley Kubrick here, even though that it could have been. But I just think that what do they think that people, when they walk by a movie theater, if they haven't seen Harley Quinn, they're going to look at that marquee now and go, oh, I got to see that new Harley Quinn movie. I didn't know there was a Harley Quinn movie out. I thought Harley Quinn was in Birds of Prey. Is this a new movie? What is this? It's such a weird, like, hello, marketing department, epic fail. Don't do this. I mean, I guess they've already done it. So,
but I mean, at the same time, can it do any harm at this point to change it to Harley Quinn Birds of Prey? I mean, I'll give them that. I mean, it can't do any harm at this point, I guess.
Only to the Warner Brothers marketing department who made this public and once again blunders into the face of, like, the Warner Brothers marketing department who took credit for the success of Inception. The Warner Brothers marketing department, who called the movie Edge of Tomorrow instead of All You Need Is Kill or Live, Die, Repeat, whatever. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It is really, it never ceases to amaze me how bad marketing decisions really can affect a movie, which I really think should make us appreciate more how often these marketing departments actually do get it right and do it right. I think we need to look at these blunders and make us to make us appreciate more the good jobs that sometimes Warner Brothers, sometimes Disney, sometimes Paramount, whatever, all these other studios, they do normally a pretty good job marketing their films, but this is...
I mean, I don't want to look. I've been very impressed by studio marketing as of late. I mean, I think for the most part, I kid, kind of like the VFX department, wrote that letter. I don't mean to throw the marketing department under the bus, because I do think that there's a lot of good work being done. I mean, I loved the marketing for a lot of Warner Brothers' previous superhero fare. And I think
there's some of the best
Yeah.
trailers, man. DCU, some of the best trailers.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, look, they really tried to lean into what this movie actually is. And I think ultimately, the movie, you got to blame the movie itself at some point. You can blame the marketing, you can blame the titles, but ultimately, what really keeps a movie going, you've got the fanboys that are and fangirls that are going to turn out that Thursday night and Friday. But if the word of mouth and the reviews, the movie itself is what's going to sell it. And I think that, I watched the Critical Drinkers review of Harley Quinn, and I really like his reviews, and I think what he had to say, the movie's, it's full of a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on in this movie, John.
There is. And there's a lot of stuff in this movie that I liked. I didn't like the movie overall, but I can see why a lot of people do. Anyway, guys, question is, what do you think about this little change in marketing approach after the movie's already opened? From, let's see if I get this right, The Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn to Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. Is it a good move? Is it a bad move? Even if it's a good move, is it too little too late? Or do you think this could do some good at this point? Maybe you think it'll backfire on them and do some bad. What do you guys think? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Nate, who writes in, "Hey, John and crew. Today I read a New York Times article that said that this Oscar show was the least watched in Oscar history. According to Nielsen, only, anyway, 23.6 million people, this is in the North American audience, watched the show, which is a 20% drop from last year. So, what does this mean for the future of the Oscars? And do you think that a host could help get the ratings up?" All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, last year was a year that the Oscars saw their viewership actually go up. This year, 20% drop from the previous years. Rob, I personally think this is indicative of a couple of problems and things that the Oscars have done and continue to do wrong that I think have contributed to a lot of this. And I believe there are certain things that the Oscars need to do to turn this around. By the way, one of the things that I do not believe is one of the culprits is the odd winner going up and making some sort of political statement. I don't believe that's really been one of the culprits. That's been around the Oscars forever. Does anybody remember back in the day, what did he win for? What did Marlon Brando win for when he made that speech about American natives and things like that? And I can't remember.
Shailene Woodfeather, whatever.
Yeah, when he sent her up. I mean, yeah, so this has been around. It's not like this suddenly became a thing and now it's a thing. It was around before, so I don't actually think that's the culprit. Not that it couldn't have a negative effect, but I don't think it's primarily the culprit. It's been around forever. But there are a couple of things I would point to that to me suggest that they need to turn this around. And a lot of it goes to the marketing of the show itself. The first thing that I want to suggest is this. You need a host. And here's why. I'm not even talking about for the show itself. Although, Rob, you and I discussed this, and we do feel that a host could have made this show flow a lot better this year. But primarily, what they have done with the host in years past is the host then becomes your main centerpiece for the marketing of the show. When you had Billy Crystal hosting the Oscars, you could build your marketing campaign for this year's Oscars around Billy Crystal. When whoever was hosting the awards, whether it was Seth MacFarlane or whoever was hosting the Oscars, you then had a centerpiece to build a marketing campaign for the show around the Oscars. Because I'll tell you what, Rob, there were times that I forgot when the Oscars were even going to come on this year. They did not do a good job this year at all. Like, I don't know if they just thought, we're the Oscars, we don't need to market and promote. Because I saw personally, and maybe it's just my experience and maybe I'm incorrect about this, but I felt like there was a lot less marketing for the show this year, Rob, than I've seen in years past. And so they just did a bad job of that. And when you don't have a face, Rob, to kind of be the representation, the face of that thing, it becomes more difficult to market. So out of the 5 things I want to suggest that the Oscars continue to do wrong here, first of all, is they got it wrong about not getting a host. They need to get a host for next year to make the show run better, yes, but also to build your marketing for the show around. So that's number 1. Number 2 big mistake that I feel that they continue to make, especially in today's era, that they need to change. And it also goes to the marketing of the show. That is this. Play to your popular movies. I'm not saying give the popular movies the awards. I'm not saying that. I'm absolutely not saying that. That's bullshit. Don't do that. I'm not saying don't give it to them just because they're popular either. Just give the awards to whoever you feel is the best. That's fine. But when you're promoting and marketing the show, holy crap, Joker should have been plastered all over everything. Joker should have been plastered over a lot of their marketing for the show. Avengers Endgame, but John, it was only nominated for Best Visual Effects. It's still nominated for an Academy Award. Visual effects. Celebrate that. Put that on the cover of your damn marketing. That Star Wars is a $1 billion film. Put that in the marketing of the show. When you're marketing the show and you're trying to broadcast the appeal of it, play to the strengths. Now you can go, well, John, that's disrespectful. No, it's not. This is marketing. This isn't it. Nobody deserves to have their film mentioned in a commercial. This is marketing. It's a totally separate thing. If you're trying to get people to tune in and watch the show, get people excited for the show, play to the films that are nominated that will get the most attention. Use that. And they're not doing that, and I think that's a mistake. The third thing that they have done wrong forever, and I believe it's becoming a more painful thing, and we've all said this is a no-brainer. I'm not reinventing the wheel here, but is they've got to shorten the damn show. This show clocked in at it clocked in at Irishman run times. It clocked in at 3 hours and I believe 36 minutes. 3 hours and 36 minutes, and it does not need to be. You're putting on a whole bunch of frivolous crap, meanwhile rushing like filmmakers who've been making movies their whole lives and finally have a chance to stand in the spotlight, and they didn't even get a chance to say a word because you had to rush them off the stage because we got to get into that next musical number, everybody. Like, shorten the damn show. All right, so that's the third thing. Fourth thing, and it's connected to the third. I've been saying this forever, and I'm going to keep saying it because I don't care how many people disagree with me. I believe this is correct. Get rid of the musical performances. At least get rid of the musical performances for the nominated songs. You don't dedicate 3 minutes of screen time for every single nominee in the acting category. You don't dedicate 3 minutes of screen time for every single nominee in the director category. You don't dedicate 3 minutes of screen time to every nominee in the cinematography category. You're using up 15, 20 minutes of screen time and putting the emphasis. And guess what? People keep putting in there and saying, oh, we got to have the entertainment. And listen, I liked the musical numbers this year. I liked them. I thought they were fun. But that's fine. That's not what I tuned into the Oscars for. I tuned into the Oscars to watch the best movies of the year be honored and to hear the winners announced. That's what I do. The Oscars need to adopt a little bit of a KISS method here. A little bit of keep it simple, stupid. Have a host, opening monologue, bring out a presenter, announce the category, honor the nominees, announce the winner. Next, host segues into our next presenter, blah, 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 out on stage, announce the winner, give it up. That's why we tune in. I loved the Eminem number. I did. I got totally in. When Eminem came on stage, I'm like, what? And I totally got into him singing his tune from 8 Mile. I totally dug it. I loved it, but that's not what I tuned into the Oscars for. I tuned into the Oscars to see films get honored and winners announced. You know, host, segue to presenter, honor the nominees, present the award, acceptance speech, rinse, cycle, repeat. You know, move on. You can shorten the show a lot and keep the focus where it needs to be. Rob, businesses fail, projects fail when people running those businesses and projects get their attention diverted away from what the core important thing is. And I believe the Oscars has lost sight of what the core important thing is. Recognize the best pictures of the year, honor the nominees, announce the winners. That's what we're there to celebrate. And they're so worried about, we need to make the show more entertaining. Listen, I'm sorry. You're not going to do I'm going to be more entertained flipping the channel and watching a rerun of Seinfeld. You're not going to compete with Seinfeld. I can just change. If I just want to be entertained, I can just switch the channel and watch Seinfeld. I'm here for the event of it. You know what's a big broadcast winner? The NFL draft. Wrap your heads around that. Do you know how many people watch the NFL draft? And they don't have Ludacris come out in the middle in between picks 5 and 6 to do his latest ditty. They don't have, you know.
To be fair, that'd be pretty great, though.
Although now that you mention it, that might actually be pretty good. But because the reason the people who watch the NFL draft are tuned in to watch is because they want to see which players are being taken to which teams and which players are their team taking. That's what they're there to watch. And that's what they want. And I think there's something about, as I just about destroyed another set of headphones, but this time it was by accident. I think there's something to be said about reducing it back down a little bit more and get to the key reasons about why the Oscars exist and why the show is on and why the people are tuning in to watch. And I think that's important. So that's the fourth thing. So you need a host to just promote the show, not even just make the show run well. You need to use the bigger movies that are legitimately nominated to promote the show itself. You need to shorten the show up. You need to get rid of the musical numbers. And the last thing I want to mention here is this. And this is more of a philosophical thing. I don't know the direct application, but focus more on the movies. Like, I watched this Academy Awards, and I enjoyed the Academy Awards this year. I did, but it's kind of odd and disjointed. We've talked about that already. But one of the things as I reflected back on the Oscars this year was, you know, there wasn't really a big emphasis on the actual movies. There really wasn't a hell of a lot of emphasis on the movies themselves. You know, I love Kelly Marie Tran. We all know that. I love Kelly Marie Tran. It made my heart smile to see her on the screen. But what is her popping up going, look, everybody, it's Questlove. Oh, my God. I mean, like, just focus more on the movie. Give more attention. You know what they used to do in Oscar years, Rob, that they didn't do this year? They would, throughout the show, starting right from the beginning of the show and throughout, saying they would take a 1 minute break almost and say, one of the best picture nominees this year is such and such movie, directed by so-and-so. It's a compelling tale of this and this. And they'd show like a 1 minute montage. Then later in the show, take another quick 1 minute montage to show that another one of the best pictures. And they used the show to emphasize and celebrate and honor the movies. They focused on the movies. And I feel like in this desperate attempt to go, oh, we got to become more entertaining. We got to become blah, 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 blah. In this whole desperate run to do that, they are losing sight of what is important. And I feel like they need to get back to that. So those are the 5 things that I feel like the Oscars are getting wrong that has contributed. This is not the be all and end all. I just feel this has been a contributing factor to why we've seen the numbers drop. And I really think this is something they need to fix moving forward. And fortunately, it's an easy fix. But anyway, Rob, you know, you look at the drop in the numbers, you hear me going on about things I think they need to change, blah, 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 and hear me bitch, moan, and complain like a little suck. Anyway, what do you think about all that?
Well, I was just happy to see that Kelly Marie Tran got more time on the Oscars than she got in The Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
But no, in all honesty, I completely agree with you. I think, look, I get why they thought, I think the movie music numbers, the best song numbers, are a throwback and a vestige to a different day that they need to get rid of entirely. And it's not that I don't like movie music, But if you add up, let's say each one of those numbers is 3 to 4 to 5 minutes. You've got 5 songs. So you're looking at least a half an hour of time in this award show of just singing. And then you added Eminem, which was an extra added element. I understand like why they did it, but this is not the best. This is not the Grammys. And I really think like what you said, I like seeing clips of the Best Picture. I like when they would do clips, when they would show little behind the scenes things of, say, the costume design. They did that in years past. And I think people tune into the Oscars to see the stars of the movies, to see the Hollywood glitz and glamour, and to celebrate the movies themselves. And the movie music numbers seem like they're from the 60s or something. And it's just like this tradition that they've moved forward. I think they need to get rid of that. They can have one good opening number. I don't mind one opening number, but I used to love the opening number. I watched a clip of, was it the 2001 or 2 Oscars where Whoopi Goldberg descended? It was the first year, I think it was 2002, the first year in the Kodak Theater where Whoopi Goldberg descended in this big peacock outfit from the ceiling, and she just delivered a monologue and got us into the show. I loved that. That was what a good host did, and they would come out and move the show along. I really think they've got to, if the show is, look, you take out those musical numbers and there's your length of show right there. I don't understand, why do they insist on keeping those numbers in? That's not what people want to see. And I mean, it's not that music. I'm a firm believer in what's more important than the songs is the original score. If you're going to focus on something, I love that scene in this year's awards where that woman came out, I forget her name, and she conducted bits of the scores from all of the nominated films. Those are far more important than the actual best songs of the year.
Yeah, and by the way they did that was they created a collage or a medley, if you will, and they crammed all of the pieces of music being nominated into one like minute and a half piece. If you want to do that with Best Song, have all the 5 performers of Best Song each doing 20 seconds of their song that then goes into the next nominee doing 20 seconds of their song, and you get it all done in a minute or so. Great. I'm not saying get rid of the category. I'm just saying don't listen, because when you get Best Supporting Actor category, right? They didn't bring Brad Pitt up on stage to act out a 3-minute scene of him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and then they bring up Anthony Hopkins to act out a 3-minute scene of Two Popes. No, and that's a more important category. So I don't know. That's just me.
No, that's a great, by the way, that's a great analogy. And I think that that's the way to keep the show zipping along. It's like, take a page from the Independent Spirit Awards. I really like the Film Independent Spirit Awards, watching them, because you really get a sense of who these people are. And
did you see Adam Sandler's acceptance speech, by the way?
Yeah, I did. And wouldn't we rather have more Oscar moments like that?
I agree. Anyway, guys, what do you think about all this? Maybe you completely disagree. Maybe this was your favorite Oscars of the year. Maybe you think, hey, listen, 23 million people is still 23 million people watching it. Maybe you're something like me saying, look, a 20% drop is a significant thing. You got to look at this. What do you think about some of the changes? What are some of the things you would change about the Academy Awards moving forward? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Geeky Gator, who writes in, "Hey, John and crew. Scott Derrickson's co-writer, Robert Cargill, confirmed on Twitter that they never actually even wrote a draft for the Doctor Strange 2 movie. The project just attached to the Loki showrunner to work on the script, but do you think they may be rushing things too much? Will they probably have to film soon? They will probably have to film soon to make that May 2021 release date." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Geeky Gator. And yes, as many of you will remember, we just found out recently, unfortunately, that director Scott Derrickson has departed the Doctor Strange 2, citing creative differences, which is unfortunate. It sucks. It looks like they're getting Sam Raimi to direct it, which is awesome. But it still would have been great to see Derrickson come back and follow up on the great work he did on the first Doctor Strange movie. Anyway, apparently Scott, though, wasn't as far along in developing this movie as maybe some of us thought. This, as Geeky Gator pointed out, comes from Robert Cargill, who is, of course, a co-writer with Scott Derrickson, who wrote the following on Twitter. He wrote, "Since it keeps coming up in the news stories, it's worth noting that Scott and I never had the opportunity to write a draft of Multiverse of Madness. So, wherever or whatever they are working with now is not a derivative of our work. I am, of course, very excited to see where they take Stephen Strange next." And that comes from Scott Derrickson's co-writer on Doctor Strange. So they never even got that far into it, Rob. On the one hand, you can look at that as a negative thing. It's like, really? They haven't even gotten started yet? Where are they going? Blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, to me, it's kind of a positive thing that it's like they got it figured out that they weren't really on the same page creatively. Kevin Feige didn't want to let Scott Derrickson go in the direction that he really wanted to take it. For everybody who always complains about studio interference, he didn't want to let Scott Derrickson take it to where he wanted to take it, and at least they got that figured out before all the work was put into writing a script and all that kind of stuff. So that's good. That's good. And it gives the new writers and the new directors a clean slate. It gives them a clean page that they can walk in on and work on and really make this movie, Robert, their own. And so that's a positive thing as well. So, Rob, you hear this story that they never even got as far as writing a draft of the script. Is that a bad thing? Is time really tight? Like, the way I look at it, Kevin Feige probably already has the basic outline of what he wants this movie to be, and it's just going to take the screenwriter to come in and now flesh it out over the course of the next few months. But how are you feeling about this?
Well, I think it's disappointing. It's interesting to know that I would have thought after announcing the title that they were deep into pre-production or they had a script. I mean, it's True. Very interesting to me. I mean, it leads me to believe that maybe they jumped the gun, and when they announced this movie and Scott Derrickson and his co-writer, I keep thinking of him as Massa Worm from the old Ain't It Cool News days. Yeah. But it's kind of a little baffling to me. Because I would have thought the reason they announced the title is because they knew what the movie was. And I think, if anything, it gives us a little insight into how Marvel is working now. That Marvel themselves, they're coming up with ideas, and maybe when they gave this to their team to come up to write or whatever, that maybe their initial ideas or their pitch or whatever was a little outside of what they wanted to do. They announced the title without really thinking about the ramifications of what that meant or where that was going to go. And I think that might be what happened to this. And as Scott Derrickson was trying to develop the film to live up to their great title, and I love that title when they announced it, that they pitched something a little bit too extreme. I don't know. It's interesting to me. I see it as not a red flag, but I see it. It disappoints me to know this, John. I find it disappointing.
All right, guys, the question is, you heard about this. Is it not really a big deal to you? Is it fascinating to you? Is this a positive? This is negative. How do you feel about this whole thing, knowing that they weren't even that far along in the development as it stood? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's move on to our fourth and final main topic today. And our fourth and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Dylan Payton, who writes, Christopher McQuarrie confirmed via Empire Podcast that Tom Cruise is training to do stunts for Mission Impossible 7 and 8 that are more dangerous and terrifying than his previous films. The dude has already flown on the side of a plane and a helicopter. What else can he do? My question is, what kind of stuff do you expect to see Tom Cruise do in these future films based on these comments? All right, thanks a lot for saying that in, man. And for those of you wondering, Christopher McQuarrie, of course, who's been working with Tom Cruise for quite a while now, he made this statement, which is really kind of interesting. He says, "We've figured out 3 obscene stunts that he's doing that I am terrified of, that makes the helicopter chase look like Tinker Toys." We figured out 3 obscene things that he's doing that I am terrified of that make the helicopter chase look like Tinker Toys. Rob, Tom Cruise is a dude who has been getting more and more, some people would say foolish, other would say ballsy, in his career as he's been getting older and doing more and more things. And of course, the law of diminishing returns, Rob says, well, if you're going to jump off of a building 5 feet apart, now the next one, you got to jump off one that's 7 feet apart. Then you got to jump off one that's 10 feet apart because you got to, the law of diminishing returns, you got to top it. You got to top it. The dude taught himself how to fly a helicopter for some chase scenes in the last movie. He literally did his own Halo skydiving. He in the Mummy movie, he literally got in a vessel that went up to the edge of the atmosphere to 0G so he could do a simulated tumble roll of a crashing airplane. This dude has injured himself jumping from aforementioned building to building and doing some of the most insane stuff. And of course, we as the audience, we're never satisfied because we're like, give us more. Do something more death-defying. Swallow poison, Tom Cruise, and see if you can survive. I mean, it's crazy. To the point that Christopher McQuarrie is saying, Tom Cruise has got 3 things lined up that are so, and he uses the word obscene, that are so obscene that it terrifies him. Rob, we're talking about a dude who has hung onto the side of an airplane as is taken off into the sky. We're talking a guy who's flying his own fighter jets in Top Gun. We're talking about a guy who taught himself didn't teach himself, but he learned how to fly a helicopter so he could have more realistically stuff. He flew to the edge of the atmosphere. What is there left? What 3 things could Tom Cruise possibly be planning on doing for the upcoming Mission Impossible stuff to do it? What hits your mind when you hear comments like this?
I can't even imagine. Like, what's he going to try and do? Out-ski an avalanche or something? I mean, is he going to go up?
Not visual effects, a real avalanche.
A real avalanche. Like, he's going to learn how to become a master. He's a black diamond skier, and they're going to blow up the side of a mountain, and he's going to try and out-ski. Like, I don't even know. It scares me. I think though. Look. He did learn to fly a jet, I think Hornets, F-18s or whatever, F-22s that are in Top Gun. I mean, it's unbelievable. You look at those aerial shots in the trailer where it's clear that those aren't blue screen shots. Like, it's him flying off. It's like he flew off aircraft carriers. I mean, it's insane. It's insane what he does. But it scares the heck out of me because I don't want something horrible to happen. It gives me pause, Sean. Somebody you're producing a movie right now, even though it's a documentary, you would never put somebody in harm's way. It's just like, my God, I don't know what he's going to do. When they say obscene, I can't even imagine. Is he going to outrun a nuclear explosion? What are they going to do to him? I don't know.
This may sound silly, and I acknowledge this may sound silly, okay? I get it. It may sound silly, but we're in silly territory here now. We're in silly territory here now. I would not be shocked. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen because we've joked about it, but I would not be shocked if right now Tom Cruise, using all of his Scientology connections, is talking with NASA to get him into the pilot seat of a literal space shuttle. I'm not being facetious. I'm not kidding. I would not be surprised tomorrow to find out that Tom Cruise is actually going to be in the cockpit of a space shuttle, literally taking off into orbit. I wouldn't be shocked at this point because I don't know what else do you do if you're him at this point? Like, everybody's joked that Fast and Furious and Mission Impossible are going to go to space, but they literally might go to space.
It's funny that you say that because, like, what if they send him up to the International Space Station?
Oh my God.
And like he has to he's in a fight scene or something and he gets thrown out the airlock. Now he's in a spacesuit or something. So he ends up literally having to dive back to Earth. I mean, even though we saw something like that in Ad Astra, in
that Red Bull commercial, remember the guy who took the balloon up to outer space and jumped off? Yeah, he did it for real.
What if it's an action scene where not only does he get thrown out of the International Space Station, but there's like a fight scene in orbit? And then he descends from orbit into the atmosphere. And what else could he do? It's just
I mean, do what they did in that one James Bond movie, but only it's no visual effects, it's real. Like, is Tom Cruise going to jump into a pit of Komodo dragons and literally fight like real Komodo dragons? I mean, I don't know. Hey, listen, guys.
I just think about who's going to film it, John. It's the camera crew that I worry about even more. Like, oh my God.
They're just going to slap GoPros on everything and say, forget it, Tom. Like, the insurance company will not cover us for this
not going.
This stuff you want to do. Question is, guys, to you, what possibly can Tom Cruise do at this point that would still shock and surprise us to the point that Christopher McQuarrie is going, these things scare me, and that they're obscenely dangerous? What can he do? What are you guys expecting to see? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys, that wraps up all of the main topics here on the John Campea Show today. We're now going to segue in to the live questions that you guys have been sending in. Of course, there's two ways to send in live questions. The best way is to use the tip link that's in the top line of the description of this video. You can just click on that and send it in. By the way, you can use that any time, so you can even send it in at midnight and see your questions be one of the first answered the next day. Or you can just use the super chat feature here on YouTube. But before we get to the live questions, Robert and I are going to do as we do every day. We're going to take a short couple of minute break here, rest the vocal cords, stretch the legs, refill our drinks, give you a chance to run and use the bathroom yourself. So hang tight, guys. Don't go anywhere. Robert and I, with your live questions, will be right back. See you in just a minute. right, guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as we took a few minutes there to rest up. And now let's get things going with our live question. Although I should address something here really, really quick because I've had a bunch of people write to me about this. Rob, you know this. As some of you guys know, I am working on a little documentary. So I put together a little 1 minute. It's not even a sizzle. It's not a trailer. It's just a 1 minute little example clip that I was meant to share with some people who are going to be involved with the project.
Oh, you shared it, all right.
That I meant to share with some people who are going to be involved in the project so they have a feel for what the project is. So it was like, in my defense, it was like 12:30 at night. And I uploaded it to YouTube, and I thought I had uploaded it under unlisted. And then I go to bed, and I'm like on my iPad, as I usually am, just to wind my mind down before going to sleep. And I noticed some notifications coming in about comments being left. I'm like, wait, what? And I realized I had put it on public instead of unlisted. So I quickly went in and did that. But you were actually up, and you actually saw it last night.
Oh, dude, I kind of wind down. I did the same thing. I was in bed looking at YouTube clips, and it popped up in my feed. I'm like, huh, what's this? And I hit click, and I got to watch it actually on my 65-inch plasma screen. And I have to say, I was very impressed. I mean, I know you've been working on it. I know something about what you're doing, and I hadn't seen any of it. And I was like, wow, John, this is A-list. Well done, sir.
Well, anyway, so about apparently almost 2,000 people saw it by the time I caught it. So that's what it was, not meant to be seen by everybody. It was not meant to be seen, but to all of you guys who watched it and said nice things, thank you so much for that. But I will share something from it. In the next month or two. I will share something publicly from it. But just anyway, for those of you who saw it, thank you for not pirating it and sending it around.
By the way, since we've been talking, some news dropped that's sort of interesting.
Oh.
Blumhouse announced, you know that movie they were making that they made called The Hunt?
Yes.
That it's coming out March 13th.
It is getting a release.
They just dropped the information on Twitter, and I saw it pop up. So, yes, it's coming out March 13th. I don't know if that's a Friday, but I think after movies like Ready or Not, they realized that, okay, we can release this movie. By the way, I love Ready or Not.
And remember, like you and I talked about this. You and I talked about the fact that we believed that this movie was going to eventually come out. That even though we said right when the whole thing was going, this movie will come out at some point. So that kind of makes sense. They just put too much money and resources into it not to do it. So that's going to be good to see because I thought the trailer was clever. I thought the trailer was clever. I'm looking forward to seeing it. All right, guys. Let's get into answering your guys' live questions. We're going to get things started with Nick, who writes, Buongiorno, Giovanni. Buongiorno, Nick. Hope yourself and Lillian Shadow are having a great weekend. We are. Pardon me. We are. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I got the hiccups, unfortunately. How long before streaming services such as Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon, etc., get more Oscar recognition? How capable are they of producing Oscar-nominated worthy content? Well, Nick, I would say just go back and rewatch the Oscars from this year. I mean, you had, what did Irishman had 10 nominations? Laura Dern became the first Academy Award acting winner for a Netflix thing. She won for Marriage Story, got tons of Oscar nominations and buzz and stuff like that. So I would suggest you don't have to go much further back than this year by itself. Rob, what would you say to that?
Well, gosh. What can I say about that, John? There's I don't know. I really don't know what to say. I mean, I don't know, honestly. All right,
but I mean, like these movies had tons of nominations and everything, so they are obviously already getting that Oscar love.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. There's people are making so much out of this, and I just think that it's not. One, you can't buy your way into nominations. And True. I think what's really interesting is, like, in the case of The Irishman, you know how excited I was for it. I put it down, I bet all in, and I do think that it might have been my favorite movie of the year. I really do. And I really loved the movie. But you know what was really interesting about seeing what happened with that movie? like, you know that Netflix is making, they really want to be in the Oscar game, and they made these bids. It's almost like Netflix thought it was a foregone conclusion that making The Irishman with Martin Scorsese was their ticket to winning Oscar gold. And what I didn't like to see what happened with the film is like with Marriage Story or with The Irishman, the quality of the movie somehow was eclipsed by the talk of Netflix and Oscar. And I'm like, let's why not make it about the film itself, you know? And it was really interesting seeing people talk about how, well, you know, The Irishman was not as good as Goodfellas or Casino. And was it supposed to be? I mean, it's a very different movie. Goodfellas is very different from Casino, even though, yes, it deals with characters from the mob, but the idea, the whole premise behind the movies is a little bit different. And The Irishman was really a film about how a life led can lead to so much personal loss, and how you're left with nothing but loneliness. And that was different, even though the milieu was sort of the same, but we hadn't seen Scorsese do anything like that before. And I feel like a lot of the talk overshadowed the actual accomplishment of these movies. And I that's kind of a bummer.
All right, next one up. Eddie Camacho writes, John, Quentin only has one more chance to win his Best Director Oscar if he's really serious about his 10th film being his last. Look, we all know it's not going to be his last. His next film is not going to be his last. Let's just put, I believe he believes his next film's going to be his last.
Yeah.
But he also believed he wasn't going to do Hateful Eight. Remember that? He came out, he was all upset because people leaked some stuff. He said, I'm not making Hateful Eight anymore. And he believed it, but, you know, a few days passed, a couple weeks passed. He goes, you know, I really like my Hateful Eight idea. I'm going to go make Hateful Eight. And he did. That's going to be the same thing with this movie thing, so we'll see him make another one. Nick also writes, do you think Disney will eventually remake their entire animation catalog into live-action movies? No. How likely is it that other animation studios like DreamWorks will do the same? Not sure if they'd be as successful as the Disney ones in doing so. No, I certainly, look, Disney's definitely going to look at the films that they can adapt and put to live action, but some animated films don't lend themselves to having a good live action remake. But I think you're onto something there, Nick, that I do not believe it's going to be long. It's not going to be long at all before we start seeing other studios trying to do live action adaptations of what they did. But then again, I mean, look, Kung Fu Panda, you can't do a live action adaptation of that. That's got to be animated. Maybe animated in the Lion King style, but it's got to be animated. So that's going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky, but I do think you're going to see other people try to do that. 073 Films writes, do you think the Oscars will ever move to a streaming-only service, allowing them to choose a host without worrying about advertisers? Also, Happy Death Day 2 deserves credit for being different from the original, not just a typical retread, and yes, it does. But Rob, no chance in hell. No chance in hell. Do you know how much money? The Oscar streaming is the second most expensive ad slots of the entire year. Second only to the Super Bowl. They get millions of dollars for every single trailer that plays. There is simply no way the Oscars ever, the Academy, you know what's paying for that bright, shiny new museum that I cannot wait to go see, by the way.
Me neither. Oh my God.
The advertising dollars from the Oscars. That's what's paying for it. So there's no way, Rob. Do you see them ever moving away and getting rid of those advertising dollars?
No, unless somebody pays them the equivalent to stream the show. I don't, because and also remember, it is a worldwide show. It is streamed all over the planet. And I think that it's worth a lot of money. And until that goes away, it's going to still be worth a lot of money. So not anytime soon, John.
All right, next up here, we got Tristan Larson who writes, Cats, this is not a joke. You guys won Best Pick. I'm not quite sure what that means. Suthi says, hey, Mr. C, not me with that comment, not cool. Not sure what we're talking about, Suthius. Dropkick Aggie writes, effing love Birds of Prey. A lot of great action in superhero movies, but the action here was unique. More of what I expect from pure action movies. Without spoilers, love the scene Harley entered a place with a device of sparkly violence. One of the things I'll agree with you there, Dropkick Aggie, is that it's different kind of action. It is unique action. I'll give you that. And there are certainly moments that had good action, but I will also tell you this. The scene, which is, by the way, parts of the scene are shown in the trailer. So not a big surprise here because this is in the trailer. There's a scene where Harley Quinn breaks into the police station and starts shooting cops with a beanbag gun. I don't know if you guys watch the movie pitch skits, the movie pitch ideas. I believe Screen Rant puts them out. But they did one for the Harley Quinn movie, and they so nail it's like, Harley Quinn is a lifelong criminal who's done a lot of murder. Why is she using a beanbag? Unclear. That's actually a part that seemed to me completely inconsistent. Harley Quinn would have gotten in there with a gun and killed a lot of people, but whatever. It is what it is. But listen, I also have a number of things about the Harley Quinn movie that I actually thought were very good parts. I didn't like the movie overall, but you're right. The action was unique, and I can totally see why some people liked it, and I'm glad you enjoyed it, Dropkick Aggie. All right, Attic Hatch Sound writes, though Birds of Prey was fresh, most reviews are kind of lukewarm. Regarding the obscurity of character, remember folks were saying WTF is Guardians of the Galaxy. True, but you cannot, Rob, I find a lot of people do that. You cannot use the exceptions as the rule. You can't use the exceptions as the rule. So no. Yes, what the Guardians of the Galaxy situation tells us is that it can work. It tells us that it can work. It does not tell us that it does work. It tells us that it can. I often use the analogy there, Rob, that, if you're, to use a basketball analogy, yeah, a guy can just take the ball from half court and just heave up a shot. It might go in. There are examples of when it does go in, but it's not often. It can work. It doesn't mean it does work. And so, yeah, the Guardians of the Galaxy is a great example of that. But Rob, how would you address that?
Well, I think everything is unique. You have to take it. Everything that you say is an exception to a rule. There's always something that comes along and people go, see, look, this can work. This, but it doesn't mean it always works. You have to have the right confluence of talent, both behind and in front of the camera. You have to have the right kind of actors. You have to have the right kind of screenplay. And then, as you know, John, movies have alchemy involved. There is magic. I've always said that it's like Rumpelstiltskin spinning straw into gold. But it is. I mean, there is the idea of movie magic that you might have the best elements, but you still have to have that magic pixie dust of when all of those elements are put together. And sometimes that's something that is very, very unique. Like I look at Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think Guardians of the Galaxy has become a pattern, for instance, that everybody is looking to make their next science fiction project. Star Trek Picard has a bit of Guardians of the Galaxy and The Expanse and all of these other things. And I think everybody just thinks that, oh, that's so easy to do. And you look at these I think Suicide Squad, the reason they picked James Gunn to come back and do Suicide Squad, the second one, is because they think that he's going to replicate what he did with Guardians of the Galaxy. And it's not easy. These things are not easy to do.
You're absolutely right. All right, next up, Brado the Mildly Great. I like that name, writes, John, I'm going to say it, but I'm really looking forward to Sonic. Sure, it looks dumb and maybe stupid, possibly to appeal to kids, but I'm all heading in for is a great fun time, and I'm seeing it on Thursday night at 5 o'clock. It looks dumb as bricks. This movie looks dumb as bricks. But here's the beautiful thing. You know what else I thought looked dumb as bricks? The Harley Quinn animated show. I thought that looked dumb as bricks. And there are, plenty of movies I've seen that I have thought looks dumb as bricks, but that's your pre-movie experience expectations for it. But then you go to the movie or you go to the TV show and you leave those expectations at the door and you go in and you evaluate it on its own terms. And now I freaking love that Harley Quinn animated show. I love it. And I thought it looked dumb as hell. And I do think that Sonic looks dumb as hell. It looks terrible. Looks absolutely terrible. But you go to the movie, you leave your expectations at the door, and maybe it'll be the next Harley Quinn show for me. But Rob, anyway, where are your expectations right now going into a Sonic? Are you even planning on seeing it?
Well, probably not, but it is tracking pretty well, John. I mean, the tracking, it doesn't look like it's going to be a disaster. And I think we saw CinemaCon, right? It was the first time we saw clips at CinemaCon, and you and I are both kind of like, What the hell was that? I mean, Jim Carrey looks like, to me, the movie lives or dies on Jim Carrey's performance. And he's been, of course, on the talk show circuit and promoting the film. So that leads me to believe that he might like what he's done in the movie. And if it is a manic, between a Jim Carrey performance and if the script is actually good and they've come up with something, I mean, stranger things have happened. And it wouldn't it be, I want to live in a world, John, where a Sonic movie is actually good. I don't know. I mean, they certainly took the time to redesign Sonic. If they didn't think they had something worth doing, then maybe they wouldn't have done that. But they did. Maybe it's good.
Here's hoping. All right. Adil Master writes, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed Parasite. Part of me, however, really wanted 1917. I'm sure a lot of people did. To me, and I guess it comes down to the fact that I watched Parasite on the plane and 1917 in the cinema. How does how you watch a film change how you feel? It can. Normally it doesn't, but it can. I mean, you can be in a theater that's really dead and maybe that affects your experience with the film. Then maybe you can be in a theater that's really boisterous and people are rowdy and getting into the things, and maybe that affects your thing. I think environment and the environment you're in when you watch a movie can be a thing. I don't think it normally does, but it can impact it. And yeah, you watch something like Parasite on a little screen on a plane, but you watch 1917 in its full cinematic glory, the way it's meant to be watched in a theater and blah, 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 then yeah, you're definitely going to have a better experience with 1917. Does that overall affect how you view the film? Sometimes, yes. I think sometimes it does that. That's a good observation. Right, Yellow Flash writes, personally, Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph were the worst part of the show for me. Unfunny, old, and busted. Hit the wall hard. Sad. You know, a lot of that's cool. That's cool that you feel that way. All comedy is subjective and everything. I talked to a lot of people who loved their bit. I didn't like Kristen Wiig's dress, but I know a lot of people really loved their bit. So it was one of the big, that moment was one of the bigger winners of the night, actually. Rob, what did you think of the Maya Rudolph, Kristen Wiig thing, and what have you heard other people say about it?
Well, again, you know, I actually really like Maya Rudolph and Kristen Wiig, and when they started singing, I mean, I love, you know, Maya Rudolph used to be in like this Prince cover band, so anytime she opens her mouth, I'm there for her. But again, you know, the long comedy bits this was a long comedy bit, and it went on for a long time. It's one thing, again, to throw quips back and forth, to trade barbs here and there, but these longer bits sort of they sort of swerved into almost into that disrespectful territory. I guess I'm such a fuddy-duddy, John, when it comes to the Oscars. But I have to say, of all the comedy bits, I like theirs the best.
All right, next up comes us from an anonymous viewer who writes, hey guys, have been a lot of actors playing the roles of Batman and Superman, but only 3 Spider-Men. Why the discussion is so intense and bitter about who's the better Spidey? I prefer Holland, Toby, and Andrew were good, but Tom is more like the one I imagine. Well, first of all, look, I honestly don't hear a lot of I honestly don't hear a lot of bitter arguments about who's the better Spider-Man. I don't see a lot of people drawing a line in the sand over that. Everybody's got their favorite. And I'm sure I've seen a few toxic conversations about it, but honestly, not very many, not very much. But that just kind of goes to the fact that, I mean, I include myself, you, all of us, we are sometimes very mentally weak. And we attach our own personal identity and our own personal value in the things that we like. You know, I love the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. And what happens is, because I love the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man so much, I wrap my own identity in that preference, in that belief. And so when somebody else comes along and says they prefer the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, that's not just an attack on Tobey Maguire. That's an attack on me, because I've wrapped my identity up in the things I like and don't like. So when somebody says they don't like my Spider-Man the best, what they're really saying is, they don't like me. And I think you see that play out a lot. And it's not just about this. It's about the Marvel versus DC. It's about PC versus Mac. It's about this guy versus... I mean, we can be very, very mentally weak. And we've all done it. We've all done it.
Yeah.
But that is a sign of that weakness, that you prefer a Marvel movie over DC. Well, I'm a DC person. That means you're attacking me. That means you don't like me. And that's how we respond, right? So it's not just Spider, but I gotta say, well, I hear a lot of debate about the various Spider-Men. I don't often hear it break down into those circles too terribly much. Wally writes, I disagree that Birds of Prey trailers didn't give the plot. Harley states that Black Mask is after her and everyone else, and what each of them did to piss him off. That's not what the movie's about. That's the problem. Wally, you just proved my point. Once you see the movie, you realize that's not what the movie's about. There's a moment in the movie that has something to do with that, but that's not what the movie's about. The movie is really about Cassandra Cain and the whole, and I'm not going to give too many things away, but that revolving around Cassandra Cain and the MacGuffin of the movie, that's what the movie's about. The very fact that you just said, the trailers show us that Black Mask is after her, but that's not what the movie's about. Anyway, and what each of them did to piss him off. I do think the trailers were bad, though, just not for the reason. By the way, yeah, Parasite won, baby. But again, and yes, Parasite, so great, so wonderful. But again, what you just described is not actually the plot of the movie. That's not the driving plot of the movie. It's the without giving spoilers away, it's around the thing. It's Cassandra Cain. She is the plot of the movie and what really drives the action of the film. But anyway, there's that. Willow writes, do you think the pregnancy in A Quiet Place was an accident, or did the parents plan to have another child after the tragedy with their youngest son? Rob, that's a debate that's come up a few times that I've heard. There's a part of me that likes to believe that they chose to have another child to try to make life go on. I mean, it's horrible circumstances. It's like the thing, but I choose to believe that they wanted to have another child. I could be wrong. I don't think anything in the movie, at least the first movie, directly answers that question, but I choose to believe they planned it. What do you think?
I think so too. You know, I've always liked to believe that in sort of in the face of apocalypse or whatever, you know, humanity will go on no matter what. You have to believe that, otherwise it leads. You know, that's a staple of zombie apocalypse things. I mean, whether it's alien onslaught or zombie apocalypse, you know, you want some kind of to try and make the world normal. But I do think that they planned it. I mean, it was definitely something that they wanted to do. By the way, the more Quiet Place 2 trailers I see, dude, the more excited I get.
Oh, dude, me too. I'm so excited for that damn movie. All right.
Wow.
Murray Reich writes, with Joaquin Phoenix winning his Oscar for Joker, does this mean that this is the second time in history that a character played twice by two different actors have won Best Actor supporting Oscar role? The first we know is Vito Corleone. Yeah, we've actually talked about that a number of times on this show, Murray, going into the Oscars, that if Joaquin Phoenix did, as expected, hold up and win that, it would be the second time that two different actors have won the Academy Award for playing the same character, one for lead actor, one for supporting actor. The other, of course, was Marlon Brando and Al Pacino for playing Vito Corleone in the Godfather films. And of course, this is the second time it's happened. Jonathan writes, favorite movies ever in no particular order: Midnight in Paris, Dead Poets Society, oh Captain, my Captain, Dark Knight Rises, Forrest Gump, Breakfast Club, Green Mile, oh God, I do love Hold My Hand, Boss, the Peanuts movie, not a best movie of all time, but listen, that's a movie that did not get enough credit. I thought that Charlie Brown movie was really, really sweet. I smiled and grinned the whole way through, and all that kind of stuff. Rob, any of the movies on Jonathan's list jump out to you?
Oh, they're all classics. I mean, they're, you know, the Dead Poets Society, one of my favorite movies of all time.
All right, next up, Jonathan writes, 3 movies I nearly walked out on. Contagion, boring as hell. I kind of like Contagion.
Oh, come on. I love, especially now with coronavirus.
Especially now.
It's like a documentary.
It's a documentary. That and the what's the Rene Russo movie? Outbreak.
Oh, Outbreak.
Oblivion, complete ripoff of a better sci-fi movie, which pissed me off. 5 Feet Apart. Actually, I thought that was a nice little movie. I didn't love it, but I thought that was a nice little movie. What are yours? Well, I've talked before about movies. I've walked out of very, very few movies. I can probably count them on one hand. I walked out of The Ringer, the Johnny Knoxville film, because even though I understand that they had the best intentions, it felt like they were just using it as a platform to make fun of handicapped people. I know that wasn't their intention, though. I know that wasn't, but I walked out of that. I walked out of movie 23. which was just, I can't even go into it. And I walked out of Dark Water, the Jennifer Connelly film, the Jennifer Connelly horror. And I think there were one or two others that I walked out of as well. But those, really, out of the thousands of times I've gone to the theaters, those are the only ones. Have you ever actually got up and walked out of a movie, Rob?
I have once. And it was the semi-sequel to the Rocky Horror Picture Show, Shock Treatment.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I just, you can't set out to make a cult movie. A cult movie has to happen organically because of the audience. And I felt, I don't know. You know what? I could be wrong. I only saw it that one time. I never saw the whole movie. I think it's either come out recently on Blu-ray or it's going to come out. Maybe I should give it another chance. But that is the only movie I ever got up and walked out of while it was in the theater, while it was playing.
All right, next up, Jonathan writes, 5 Feet Apart was effing torture. I was paid $20 at an advanced screening. Not worth it. I wanted to die. My friend laughed at me because I was in physical agony. What movie were you forced to watch that was torturous? Again, I honestly didn't think 5 Feet Apart was all that bad. But I mean, not great, not good, but I didn't think it was all that bad. Jupiter Ascending. Sitting through Jupiter Ascending. Oh my God. Like it was the one, I'm not saying it's the worst movie I ever saw. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. But Rob, I have never in a movie, because I remember I was sitting beside John Schnepp.
I know.
Right? And Schnepp, I'm sure Schnepp told you about this, but Schnepp was just laughing at me the whole time because I'm literally contorting in my chair. And I'm like I never do this, but I couldn't help myself. It's like, this is so bad. Like I'm saying it out loud because it welled up inside me so much I couldn't keep it in. It's like somebody punches you in the balls. You want to stay quiet, but you're going to yell. And I'm like, that's what I felt like Jupiter Ascending was. It was a constant, repeated, agonizing motion of that movie punching me in the balls so much, and it was so bad that I'm like squirming in my seat going, oh my God, this is so bad. And Schnepp was just sitting there laughing hysterically. But yeah, for me, it's Jupiter Ascending. I don't know. What about you?
Oh my God. What was a movie that I
it was just agonizing to sit through.
It was probably a movie that I now love, The Specialist, with Sharon Stone, Sylvester Stallone, and James Woods. And
very sexy shower scene in that movie.
But it was John Barry's score, but it was so... It was a movie that I should like, and I actually kind of love it now. But when I was watching it, I kind of felt like I'm like, what are these? Really? I mean, what? It felt like a parody of every studio movie that I had seen, like every studio programmer, mid-range adult thriller. But this seemed like a parody of all of that. And when I was watching it, I just thought it was ludicrous. But in the intervening years, I've come to deeply admire it, John.
It's always a magical thing when that happens. All right, Jonathan writes, I love Nolan. He's my favorite director. Saw an IMAX preview of Tenet when I saw Harley movie. I was glued to the screen, but I still don't know what it's about. Still, I trust Nolan. Man is a genius. Yeah, I mean, it's very early. Right? It's
right.
Very early. They haven't gotten heavy into the marketing campaign. They're going to very slowly start to reveal kind of what the underlying, meaning of the movie. Go back to Interstellar. That was very much the same thing, right? There's very vague things they drop, but as the marketing continued, we started to get a bit of a picture about what the movie actually was. By the time the movie came out, and I'm sure Nolan is going to be playing that same thing. Then Jonathan also writes, and I forgot to add 12 Angry Men. Brilliant film.
Such a great movie.
12 Angry Men to my favorite movies of all time, but that movie is awesome. One setting, all dialogue, revealing details little by little, distinct characters, amazing. Best black and white movie. Your thoughts on 12 Angry Men? Well, we've talked about 12 Angry Men on this show a number of times, and I really love it. And there's something brilliant, Rob. Not that it makes movies better, but there's something that I really appreciate about single environment movies, or movies that, like, for the vast, vast majority of the movie takes place in a single environment. There's something like really neat about that. Like, for instance, I will often talk about the Sylvester Stallone movie, which is just ridiculous, but called Oscar, that Kirk Douglas was in the beginning, and it all takes place in this house. There's a brilliant one of my tied for my all-time favorite comedy with 40-Year-Old Virgin is a movie called Noises Off. It's Michael Caine, John Ritter, Christopher Reeve, Carol Burnett, on and on and on. Just an incredible cast. And the vast majority of this movie just takes place in a theater on a stage. And there's something special about storytelling in single environments. I don't know. I just dig that. What about you, Rob?
Single environments, I like that idea. What about, would you consider Shawshank Redemption a single environment because it all takes place mostly in Shawshank Prison?
Ooh, a lot of different sets though. Like a lot of different sets. Hard to say.
There's another Christopher Reeve movie that I really like called Death Trap. That also it's Michael Caine, which is based on a play, and it's kind of like a lot like the movie Sleuth. And I really like that, and that's basically in a house, and I like that idea. I think that's good.
All right, next up,
I like that.
Next up, Murray Reich writes. What is Murray Reich writing? There he is. Sir, you're needed on the bridge. Knock next time. Knock. Did you see anything? No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolligans. Because I'm powerful, and you know it. Rick Moranis playing Dark Helmet in Spaceballs, one of the greatest things you're ever going to see in your mortal coil. Make sure, if you have not seen Spaceballs, you got to watch Spaceballs. All right, Gary writes, John, people seem to forget that Dick Tracy is a comic book movie. That being said, it was nominated for 7 Oscars and won 3. That's the same amount of wins, but one more nomination than Black Panther, making it at least equally successful for wins or better. I don't know. Rob, this is a debate I've had years ago. I'm not sure I count Dick Tracy as a comic book movie. I mean, it really wasn't based on a comic book. It was based on a comic strip.
Yeah.
So, and I do see those things as two fundamentally different things. I really do. So, but I'm also not going to yell at anybody that does want to qualify it as a comic book movie. But I personally don't. When you think of Dick Tracy, do you think of it as a comic book film?
Well, I guess I do, even though it originated as a comic strip. I do think about it as a comic book movie because it did adapt the comic book aesthetic. I actually quite like Dick Tracy a lot. And I think it's all of the roots of the film are definitely in the 4-color fantasies of newsprint comic books. But yeah, I mean, I can understand that it was a strip, but I do think of it as a comic book movie.
All right. Good point. All right. Taki75 writes, Damien Chazelle was the only American to win Best Director Oscar in the 2010s. 5 wins by Mexicans, the Three Amigos. One by English, Korean, French, Taiwanese directors. Is that true? Was Damien Chazelle the only American director in the 2010s to win?
That's interesting.
I'd have to look that up, Tacky, but if that's true, that's actually really, and of course, it was a decade dominated by the Three Amigos. It was totally a decade dominated by those 3 dudes, and the films and the cinema they gave us was amazing. But that's a really interesting statistic. I got to look that up because that's really interesting. All right, Evelyn writes, I guess Rob was right about the VFX community being offended by the cat spit, but it seems like just a joke, not an attack on VFX. What do you think? Well, again, yeah, I completely agree. Look, the Academy Awards have a category to honor visual effects. Clearly, it was not an attack on visual effects. It was a joke. Maybe, as Rob, you feel that maybe that wasn't the right time or place for it. Fair enough. I feel it was. You feel and some other people feel like it wasn't. That's cool. But it was not an attack on the visual effects industry. And again, I just felt like the hypocrisy, and as you put it, Rob, the tone deafness of the response was disproportionate. I felt like it was disproportionate. But you were right, Rob. I mean, you were right. Like yesterday, you thought there would be some people in the visual effects industry who might be upset, and clearly you nailed that, dude. You were right about that. All right. Matthew Grant writes, Underwater is so good. One of the best creature features I've seen in a long time. Very Lovecraftian. I really wish the film got more love. Like A Quiet Place, Alien. We need more high-quality monster movies. Why don't the Oscars honor Best Monster? Well, Rob, you want to take that?
Well, like you always say, film is subjective. And when it comes to Best Monster, first of all, you'd have to define it. Does that mean it's a creature? Like is Hannibal Lecter a monster? Is the devil in The Exorcist or Pazuzu a monster? Or is it only like the American Werewolf in London or Bruce the Shark in Jaws or King Kong or Ghidra or Godzilla? I think the definition of monster would be hard to define. And then if you're just going to talk about it being a creature, Then you go back to special effects makeup, and the first makeup effects Oscar did, in fact, go to An American Werewolf in London. So maybe the Academy already has honored the best monster. It's your favorite horror movie, after all.
Yeah, and it is my all-time favorite horror movie. The question then becomes, like, where do you draw a line?
Right.
Like, you know what? I saw at least 8 movies this year that had a postman in it. Why is there not an Oscar for best postman? I mean, it's right. Like, and by the way, you also then have to, the best actor category, there's 1,000 eligible films for best actors. There's literally 1,000 possible eligible actors that can be nominated. Best picture, almost 1,000 films can be nominated, could qualify for that. Best visual effects, there are so many films that have visual effects in them. If you're going to create a category that literally, there's only like 12 possible movies you can even choose from this year, I don't think you can make an Oscar category for that. I think like maybe that was always been one of my things, Rob, about motion capture, was that I don't know that you can yet have a best motion capture category because it's just not done in enough movies at this point. It's just too small of a pool. Like, so it's unfair that somebody's going to win an Academy Award when they only had 10 other possible people they had to compete against, whereas a hair and makeup person had to compete against 1,000 other people to get their Academy Award. So no Academy Award for Best Monster. Because like Rob, you pointed out, it's kind of already honored a little bit sometimes with either visual effects or with makeup.
And like with motion capture, you know how many people are involved in creating monsters? It's not just like one person.
Yeah.
You've got a whole group of people, multidisciplinary groups of people creating these things. So,
but I'm really glad, Matthew, that you liked Underwater. Really glad that you liked that. All right, next up, Lance Pro 85 sends in a really large tip, $50 tip. Thank you so much for that, Lance Pro. So as we do here, you guys have noticed on the channel, if you're subscribed to the channel, that when somebody does, on the rare occasion, send in support of $50 or more, we answer the question, but then we'll also answer it in its own standalone video in a week or two. So keep your eyes open for that, Lance Pro, but we'll answer right now. Hey, John. Please make a video entitled Why the Oscars Are the Better Award Show. Also, what do you think of the idea of the Oscars holding a separate competition on who will host the next Oscars that people can vote on? Oh my God. Make a reality show called, not America's Next Top Model, America's Next Great Chef, but the next Oscar host, a reality show, Rob, that runs 32 weeks. A 32-week thing. But here's the funny thing, Lance Pro. I will say this. On the surface, it's actually an interesting idea, but here's the problem. No one's gonna do it. You think Kevin Hart is gonna go and compete to be an Oscar host? Do you think Will Ferrell's gonna go compete? Do you think George Clooney is gonna go on and compete to be an Oscar host? I don't think that's something that you can do. And by the way, I also don't believe you leave that up to the public to vote on. Get the people who know it the best and let them make a decision about it. And sometimes it'll work and sometimes it won't, but I don't see them doing that. It's an interesting concept though, Rob. Could you think of any way that something like that could actually work?
No, I mean, you're going to take people away and you're going to turn it into a reality show that, again, is supposed to pick an Oscar host. Like, why would anybody who's the caliber of someone who could even host the Oscars subject themselves to that?
Yeah, unless you want to get, like, a nobody like me and a bunch of other nobodies competing. So what, you're going to have a nobody host the Oscars? I don't like that either.
Although I do like that as a movie itself. Like a satire, like a Christopher Guest Waiting for Guffman kind of a movie.
That could work.
Yeah.
That could definitely work. All right, we just got time for a couple more with Robert still here. T. Prince writes, long-time listener, first-time chat. Thank you so much, T. Prince. Good to have you here. Just saw a surprisingly good movie I never heard of on Hoopla, Freaks, with Emil Hirsch and Bruce Dern. Turned out to be a horror sci-fi superhero movie seen from the viewpoint of a 7-year-old girl. Rotten Tomato score of 86. That sounds familiar to me, Rob. Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I mean, the trailer looks really good, and I keep hearing, like, it was the kind of thing that led me to a movie called Fast Color, which was about a family of African American women that were also superheroes. And I keep hearing good things about this movie, and I've seen the trailer, but I haven't seen the film yet. But I keep like this viewer just sent in, people like this movie.
By the way, Grace Park is also in it. And so I am familiar with this film. Now that I look at the poster, I'm familiar with this film. I did not see it myself. Being on Hoopla, interesting. I might have to check that out then. A bold girl discovers a bizarre, threatening, and mysterious new world beyond her front door after she escapes her father's protective and paranoid control. Sounds interesting. Might have to check that out. Thanks for sharing that, T-Prince. All right, next up, Massive Jada writes, Oscars should learn from John Campea, no politics. Well, I mean, there are no politics in the Oscars. However, once somebody wins an award, like I said, go all the way back to Marlon Brando. Once somebody wins an award, if there is something that is important to them and they want to share it, then share it. And then it's up to me to decide. Like, for instance, I thought Joaquin Phoenix's, which while I was super thrilled that he won, I thought his acceptance speech was odd. Okay, whatever, but that's not the important thing. So I don't think you can make a rule about what people can or cannot. If it's important to them, you want to say something, you go ahead and do that if that's what you want to do. To me, it's not a big deal. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, I don't understand why they don't just let Tom Hanks host the Oscars. There's not a bad thing anyone can say about him. He doesn't have a bad cell in his body. No one can find dirt on him because it doesn't exist. Well, that is, of course, though, making the assumption that Tom Hanks is interested in hosting the Oscars, which, for all we know, and there's a lot of people who, listen, the whole fiasco with Kevin Hart, I'm absolutely 100% sure has turned a lot of people off the idea of hosting the Oscars themselves. It's like, really? So I'm just going to, you announce that I'm the host and everybody's just going to spend the next 3 months digging through my trash and digging through 15 years of social media posting, trying to find something to crucify me about. So again, you can't make the assumption. For all we know, Tom Hanks has no interest in hosting the Oscars. We've never seen him host any awards thing before, so maybe it's just not something that appeals to him. Guillemette LaBelle writes, greetings from Montreal, Quebec. I love Montreal. Loved 4v Ferrari. Bale was great, but Damon was born, to play Shelby. All jokes aside, I saw both Uncut Gems and Parasite in the same weekend, and both are now in my top 3 of 2019. Rob, I had the distinct and completely unplanned pleasure. There were 2 movies that I needed to see that I hadn't seen yet at the time. One was Parasite, and one was Jojo Rabbit. And it just so happened that there were going to be screenings of them in the same place. I went and saw Parasite, and I came out and said, guys, this is my new #1 film of the year. And then I immediately went back into the theater, watched Jojo Rabbit, and came out and went, guys, this is now my new #1 film of the year. I got to see my top 2 favorite movies of the year in one session. And so maybe my best doubleheader of all time. I certainly didn't know that was going to turn out to be the case. Do you have any good doubleheaders this year? Not that we often have time to do doubleheaders, but did you have one this year?
No, not a doubleheader. Not a doubleheader, but I did see Ford v Ferrari twice. If that
really?
counts in the same 3-day period of time, because I loved it so much.
Because you loved it so much. Hey,
I mean,
guys.
I just did, I caught up on it late, and then when I went and saw it, I was so blown away. I went and saw it by myself, and I went one night. It was like a Friday night, and then I went and saw it the next Sunday, 2 days later, because I just loved it. I loved it.
Speaking of things we love so much, this brings us to the end of the time of Robert Meyer Burnett today. We're going to let him go and do the things he's got to do. Robert, as always, thanks so much for being here, dude. Where can people find you and your adventures online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations, the show about something.
Awesome, Rob. Thanks so much, and we will see you again on here tomorrow.
Sounds good. I look forward to it.
Have a good one, man. We'll talk to you soon. All right, everybody, that was the great Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. So with that down, let's keep on going. We still got about 15 minutes here to get through the rest of the questions, so let's keep on rolling here. NR99 writes, did Birds of Prey really need an R rating? That's a good question. I feel like if you drop out the F-bombs and drop the violence down, to one, it's no difference to other comic book films. Well, here's the thing, NR99. You can say that about any movie, any R-rated movie. If you remove all the foul language and take out the violence, it doesn't have to be rated R. So you could say that about any movie. But I will say this. And actually, I'm going to remove my headphones here now. I will say this, though. Birds of Prey was very borderline. I mean, I agree with you. I think you very easily could have taken out a couple of the F-bombs, which none of them were really that effective anyway. And honestly, I didn't see anything in Birds of Prey violence-wise that I haven't seen on some television shows on cable. There's no nudity. There's no sex. That's a lot of stuff that'll get you the R ratings these days. I didn't see any of that stuff. So I think it's probably something you can get away from. I think it's probably something you don't need. I think it's something that, you can just get rid of. There were a couple that didn't need to be there to make the movie feel the way it's meant to feel. So I'm thinking you can get rid of it. I think it didn't have to be rated R, as a matter of fact. NR99 also writes, quick review. I thought Birds of Prey was a lot better than I anticipated. It's nowhere near the best DCU film, and it's nowhere near the worst, for me at least. Yeah, it's one of the first DCEU movies. No, it is the first DCEU film that I just straight up didn't like. I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was garbage by any stretch of the imagination. It certainly had some good elements to it, but I walked out disappointed. But there are a lot of people that did enjoy it, and I'm glad you're one of them, NR. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, I like Birds of Prey, pretty much like Suicide Squad. It's a mess. A beautiful mess, but a mess nonetheless. Overall, I enjoyed it. I had a very shitty day, and it really lifted my spirits up. Didn't have high hopes for it. Maybe that helped. And that's, you know what? That is the great thing about movies, man. You can be having a crappy day, go and watch a movie like that. It lifts you up, you enjoy it, and that's the important thing. Didn't do it for me, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't do it for you or for a lot of other people. If you enjoyed it, that's awesome, man. All right, 50 Shades also writes, the Birds of Prey movie feels to me more like a Birds of Prey prequel disguised as a Harley Quinn standalone movie. That's not inaccurate. It wasn't one of their others. It wasn't one or the other at times. There was no clear protagonist to me, but like I said, I like the movie and that's what matters. Yeah, it was clearly a Harley Quinn movie. And that's why it's not a bad idea for them to change the title to Harley Quinn Birds of Prey, but it's just too little too late. But this movie really has very little, if anything, to do with the Birds of Prey. So why do you call it Birds of Prey? This is a Harley Quinn movie with special guests, Birds of Prey. You might as well have titled it that. Anyway, 50 Shades... this isn't a spoiler. Okay, 50 Shades also writes, if this is a spoiler, feel free to skip it. I wouldn't mind a standalone movie with Harley and the Kid and a separate movie with Renee, Huntress, and Canary. They'll never do that. With the possibility of a crossover film in the movie. They spent no time on Huntress, Canary, and Renee. They didn't spend any time on them. They're never going to make a spin-off movie of them. I can 100% guarantee. Now watch, they're going to announce it tomorrow. But as for now, I can 100% guarantee they're not going to do a spin-off movie of that. There's just no way. All right, Jesse writes, you can't defend the VFX of a movie that literally had a day one patch to fix the VFX. Well, but that's not to take away. Listen, the VFX of Cats was a Herculean task. What they were going for in that movie was absolutely Herculean. It was godlike what they were trying to do with that movie from a visual effects point of view. And what they accomplished cannot be undermined. Now, look, for a lot of people it didn't work because the results didn't turn out the way a lot of people wanted, and it was a big elephant in the room. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about what a disaster Cats was. And to be fair, a lot of the people pointed their fingers at the visual effects. But here's the thing to me. Visual effects are like any other thing in the performance industry. If you're going to take the accolades and cheers and applause when it comes, you have to also accept that even if it's just in fun, you're going to take some ribbing when something doesn't work the way you wanted it to. It happens. It happens. So I think they just need to get over that. But don't underestimate just how difficult it was, how difficult a task of the visual effects of a movie like Cats would be. It's again, it's momentous. It's Olympian. It's absolutely Olympian. Anyway. All right. Sneak Peeker writes, hey, John, first time super chat. Thanks for sending it in, man. How would you rank best to worst the acting duos of these movies? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Fast and Furious, Two Popes, The Lighthouse, and Booksmart. I don't like to do rankings very much. And I'm not saying I'm just saying look, all of them were great. Whether you're talking about Leo and Brad, whether you're talking about Christian and Meth, whether you're talking about Robert Pattinson, whether you're talking about Jonah Hill's sister, whatever, they're all great, all wonderful. But the acting in Two Popes was another level. And here's the thing about Two Popes. The whole movie is these two guys in a room talking. That's the movie. Different rooms at different times with some backstory being filled, but really the heart and soul of this movie is two actors in a room talking. When you don't have comedy bits or physicality or anything else to boister it up, and all you've got is that, it better be damn good. And I'm telling you, it was damn good. Jonathan Riaz writes, what held Birds of Prey back was how badly they handled Cassandra Cain's backstory. No, there was lots that held. That wasn't just it. I can guarantee you that. The Oscars need to pick a lane. Is this a concert, the Democratic National Convention, the Met Gala, or the Oscars? Yeah, I agree with that, Jonathan. Listen, stop trying to be so many different things. The Oscars is not a night to put on a big Saturday Night Live variety show. Have some humor, sure, but keep focused on what you're there for. You're there to celebrate the movies. I like what Robert said earlier. This isn't the Grammys, you know? Like, and all the other things, like In Memoriam, absolutely always keep that forever and always. But it just feels like their attention is so chopped up. They're trying to make this like this high, quickly edited variety show. It's not meant to be that. Take a page from the NFL draft. People watch it to see who gets drafted. The Oscars, like Robert was saying, the night of the stars and elegance and high class, and we're there to see who won. That's what we're there to see. So keep it simple. Keep it simple. All right. Nicholas Zolezi writes, Oscars hosted by Tom Hanks streamed on YouTube. Well, no, they're never going to stream it on YouTube, but I'm all for, if Tom Hanks wants to do it, I am all for Tom Hanks hosted Academy Awards. I absolutely am. Noel writes, number one, does the Nielsen ratings include streaming as well? I'm not sure. As cord cutters, I'm not sure if we are included in that. I think they have figured out a way to measure that out, but I'm not really clear on that. Two, Twitter's like NFL Red Zone for the Oscars. Clips and speeches are cut and it gets rid of all the fluff. Yes, but I like seeing the nominees announced, seeing clips of the nominees, and then hearing, and the winner is, like, to me, that's just the best. And that's why the Oscars is my second favorite day of the year. Because there is so much, but like they do got to learn to cut out a lot of the other stuff that's unnecessary. Nico Garcia writes, the next stunt for Tom Cruise should be a parent. You can't train for that. Is he not a parent? I thought he was. I could be mistaken about that. But that sounds like the most dangerous stunt of all, Nico. All right, Jesse writes, Tom's Mission Impossible 7 stunt, he brushes his teeth, then immediately drinks a glass of orange juice. Ugh. Ooh, I've never done that, but I've heard it's terrible. All right, David writes, Doctor Strange 2 does have a script written by Jade Bartlett instead of Derrickson Cargill. New writer brought in to touch up that script. Oh, I haven't heard that. I'd have to go in and look up. But does that mean that script was written before the departure of Scott Derrickson? That's an interesting thing. I have to look into that. Thanks for bringing that up, David. All right, Nicholas writes, YouTube and Hulu have ad possibilities for Oscars. Not enough. And then what's the difference? Then why not just broadcast it on television? If it's just going to be the same thing, what's the difference between broadcasting on ABC versus broadcasting it on Hulu or YouTube? So I don't really see what the difference would be. McKeel writes, just watched Knives Out over the weekend. Loved it. Daniel Craig was amazing. And they've already announced they've greenlit the sequel. This was one of my top 10 favorite films of the year. I thought it should have won screenplay, but whatever. It's brilliant. It's fun. It's fabulous. I'm glad you liked it because I love that movie too. Gabby writes, we're running out of time here, guys. Just going to wrap things up here. Gabby writes, John, I think a factor in the Oscars' low ratings is the pull Fox News has on their viewers in depicting the Oscars and Hollywood in general as far-left propaganda machine, making millions of viewers who would have watched in the past tune out. Thoughts? I honestly, I've heard that a lot from a lot of people. I honestly don't think it's that big of an influence. I really don't. I tend to believe that people, be they right or left, aren't so insufferably weak-minded that they won't watch something just in case one of the people there who has a microphone in front of them says something that politically doesn't line up with what I think. I'm melting. I don't think people on the left or the right are that insufferably weak-minded. I really don't. So I don't think so. I don't think so. I think people are stronger minded than that, be they on the left or be they on the right. I do not believe that people are that shallow, that weak-minded, that the notion that somebody, if I watch something, at some point somebody might say something that's different from what I believe, and that keeps them away from. I don't believe that. I like I said again, people on the left, people on the right, I believe people are stronger minded than that. It can be an annoyance to some people, sure. But I mean, I'm never going to not watch a Clint Eastwood thing because, Clint Eastwood might say something that's a little too radical right for me. I'm not going to do that. I don't think people do that. Again, a little bit of annoyance, talk about it a lot maybe, but I honestly think people are tougher than that. I think people are tougher than that. Anyway. R. Lee writes, remember last year when Universal shelved this movie called The Hunt because of the shootings? We talked about that. Well, they've decided to release it on March 13th, releasing it theatrically. The way to go or streaming, release it theatrically. And by the way, I've always thought it would be released one way or the other. If you go back, I always believed this movie was going to be released one way or the other, as well it should. As completely well it should. So yes, I do believe that, and I think it'll be fine. And I'm glad they're doing it. But again, not unexpected. Not unexpected at all. All right. GT70 writes, hi, Onward, the Pixar movie is set for March 6th, but they will have several showings at the Berlin Film Festival beginning on February 21st. 1, how are the review embargoes work in this case? 2, are you going to the press screenings? I'm probably not going to go to the press screenings. I go to very few press screenings anymore because I just find it's not important to go to them, but I do make some exceptions. I do. And I am very much looking forward to Onward. I'm totally looking forward to it. I find there's not a lot of purpose in going to press screenings much. I like I said, I'll go. It's like, ooh, but you got to get your review out earlier than everybody else. I don't know. Like I said, I still go to some. I do. But I just find it more of a pain in the ass. You know what? I'll see the movie when it opens, when everybody else can see it. And then all I have to do is walk 10 minutes up the street instead of driving an hour across town to go watch it just with a bunch of other film critics. For what? So I could have my review up like 48 hours earlier? Ooh, guess what? The vast majority of the hits on my YouTube channel do not come from my movie reviews. I like doing movie reviews, don't get me wrong, I do, but I mean, there's not a point when all I have to do is like wait 48 hours more and then I can just watch it in the theater here by my place. It just seems like a better thing to me. But I'm very, very excited for this movie. I'm very, very excited. If it's being publicly screened at a film festival, like a public screening at a film festival, then that probably kills the review embargo. Because once public audiences get to see it, it probably kills any review embargo. So I'm guessing there may not be a review embargo involved. I don't know for sure. Have to wait and see. All right. Chris Lissenfelt writes, in my opinion, the reasons for the poor viewership of the Oscars, it starts way too late for a Sunday night. That doesn't help, but that's the way it's always been. But it certainly doesn't help. Starts way too late for a Sunday night EST when most people have to go to work on Monday. It's way too long of a show. You're right. Listen, when you got a show that doesn't end till about midnight, when people got to go to work the next day, again, that just goes all towards, I think it should start a little bit earlier and be shorter. They need to shorten this thing up. I think that's a good point, Chris, that not a lot of us, including myself, don't bring up enough because I think you're onto something there. All right, Chris also writes, it was such a good question. Wrote it in twice. So there you go. I got that. All right. Chris also writes, also, most people I've talked to didn't watch because of politics. No one wants to be told what to do by celebrities who aren't really that in touch with normal reality. Again, that's just my opinion. I don't think it's that. I think there's an impact there. But what? Like 3 or 4 people made a political statement in their acceptance speeches? You're not going to watch it because you can't handle hearing 3 or 4 people say something that's opposite of what you think? I don't know. I believe people are stronger willed than that. I believe people are stronger mentally than that. So while it can be a little bit annoying, I don't think it's as big as a problem as some other people think, but that's just me. Cody Cordy writes, hey, John, I bet right when Rob left, he went and bought Ford v Ferrari in 4K because it released today. Oh, I didn't know that. It released today in 4K. Interesting to know. All right, guys. By the way, I love that movie. Ford v Ferrari is so freaking good. That will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here and being a part of it. Thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett, of course, for being here and bringing his gloriousness here. Thank you to all of you guys for making this show a part of your day. And a special thank you to all of you guys who sent in questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you supported the channel while you're doing it. And all of us here, thank you very much for that. Don't forget, guys, the John Campea Show returns again tomorrow. Make sure you come back and join me and Robert for that. That will do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, guys, bye-bye.